I'm going to pay $20 million for this, and the 8 that are stabilized, I'm not going to force them out, but they're in their 60s or 70s, and in the next 15 years, when they pass away or just move out, I'm going to renovate this and bring it to free market. And they got a loan and did the underwriting based on that.
Oh my
And
God.
now the law has changed. So it's like, look, even if those people leave, those 8 people leave, you can't do anything. If you put me or you in there, right? Let's just say, I'm just saying, 800-900 bucks for a 1 bed downtown, it's almost cheaper than storage, right? You're taking me out of there in a body bag when I turn 90 or
Right.
35,
Right.
right?
Facts.
So
Facts.
I'm going to be in there for 60 years at a 2% increase, no increase. In 60 years, I'm going to be paying $2,000 when the market rent is like 9, right?
Yeah.
So, right. So it's like, everything they do, every legislation that I've seen them pass in regard to real estate has actually helped the bigger guy and hurt the little guy.
That's crazy because a lot of people think it's to the opposite,
It's
the
about
inverse of that.
optics. It's always
And
about optics.
that's really and I wish people. I'm glad we're talking about this because this is so important. Rent stabilization often sounds people who are against it often sound like you know
Scrooge McDuck.
the criminals and the greedy people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I
Well,
talk.
look, it
Go ahead.
also it also it goes back to the principle of teaching a man to fish versus feeding him a fish every day, right?
Mhm.
Like, where is your incentive to work hard and hustle and try and make your way up when you're like, my rent's only $800, right?
You know
Why
what?
would you ever
Yeah,
want to move on? So some people hold on to these apartments, way longer than they should,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
or they don't move, right? Because if the landlord can prove that it's not your primary residence anymore, they can destabilize you. So there's no incentive. And I just think in general, you need to incentivize human beings, right? We all
Yeah.
need to be incentivized or else we'll get lazy. Okay. So when you give
I
people
totally
free
agree with that.
things and subsidize things, there's an argument for you're feeding them a fish, right? You're not teaching them how to fish.
So, and this was a conversation I had essentially yesterday. It was about that. Now,
Yeah.
this was the whole thing. Now, I do agree with that. I think that yeah, people have to be encouraged to to move up in life. Otherwise, yeah, you will just stay in that same place. Obviously, if you can live in anywhere in Manhattan for $800, you're probably going to stay there forever, right? Unless you have a family and you want a yard and all that, it's another story. But
And even then, you're like, whoa, whoa, let's hold on to this
you
place,
might,
right?
yeah,
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 exactly. You might sublet it or whatever. So that's a fact. Now, in between the Rent Stabilization Act, which obviously is not a good look, right? Then you have people who argue that okay, the cost of living in Manhattan is way out of control. Now, when Mandami comes in, I may be saying his name right. I always say it wrong, but Mamdani. There we go. So,
whatever. Yeah.
so when he comes in with this stuff, so he's coming in now in relation to what we're talking about
By the way, it's not a microaggression to like mispronounce someone's name, right? Like, because everyone's really, I gotta say, right? As someone whose name is Keon, but it's not spelled phonetically, right? I've seen people get their name misspelled, like, oh,
yeah, I
how
know.
long does it take to learn? I'm like, listen, I don't give a like. People go K, I'm like, yeah, fine, here, give me the drink. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a microaggression to not know how to pronounce a difficult name. It's just not.
Well, story of my life too, so I appreciate that. I'm trying
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
nice here, but
All right,
now
go ahead.
now in
Yeah.
relation to his ideas, right? So let me go through a couple of these. I want to get your
All
opinion.
right, go through the
So
ideas,
so
man. I don't
so we
know.
went through rent freeze on stabilized
Hmm.
apartments. So that's one. Now the other thing that's really interesting. So I'll say this. I'll just full disclosure. I think the ideas that he has, in a perfect world, is great. For everybody to have everything, without any effort, right? I get it. But building 200, building, I don't want to hate on him, but I think that, I do think he
Because your
proceeded.
comment section will be filled with people saying that you're racist against black people.
I know I'm gonna be racist and I'm extremely conservative and all this
You're going
stuff
to be
too.
racist, and then you're
I
going to be
heard
a
it all.
Muslim guy who happens to be Islamophobic as well. You know what I mean? So you don't hate on him because you're going to end up being racist and Islamophobic. Go ahead. Go ahead.
all,
Sorry.
all, all of that. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's all about having conversation and getting it out. So I think that building 200,000 new units in New York, I'm assuming Manhattan and the greater boroughs. I'm wondering how what. So when he talks about that, have you heard anything as far as or what's your perspective as far as that building 200,000 new units? Where would you build 200,000 new units over the next 10 years anywhere in New York? I'm trying to understand that. What do you see?
I think you just got to take it a step back and I I understand why people get excited about free stuff. I do, right? As a kid, I lived for the free samples. Like I would go to BJ's or Costco, and they're handing out the free samples. You know what I mean? You kind of
Yeah.
sit there and you have a couple, right? I understand the appeal of free stuff, but I think very wise person once. Actually, there's. I don't want to use this person's name because I
Mm,
don't have authorization, but a very, very wise person. He's an older gentleman. Like a very well established businessman and developer. He used a term the other day called the Judas goat. Do you know about the Judas goat?
mm-mm.
Now, the Judas goat, this is very interesting. I never heard the term the Judas goat. The Judas goat is the one goat that they train to lead the other animals to the slaughterhouse. So they
Mm,
get one goat, they pet it, they feed it, they treat it really well, and they train it to lead the other animals into the slaughterhouse. And the other
mm.
animals are like, this goat cares about us. This goat is our friend. This goat is so friendly. He must not be leading us into the slaughterhouse,
I get
right?
it now. Yeah.
And I genuinely believe that the world is filled with Judas goats, right? You go on social media, right? And there's a guy and he's like, I'm all natural. I up my carbs, right? That's the Judas goat. You cannot achieve that unless you take steroids, right? You
Mm-hmm.
see the girls who are like, oh, this is natural, right? Or, oh, I didn't get any work done. I just put, J-Lo says, I just put olive oil on my skin, right? That's a Judas
Right.
goat. You put olive
Right.
oil on your skin and you don't look like J-O. What's going on, right?
Right.
I've seen a Judas goat in business at the first
Mm-hmm.
company I started
Mm-hmm.
at. It was more of a boiler room chop shop. They had 3 or 4 agents that they had a secret leads, like they called it a secret a buyer wheel. They had a
Mm-hmm.
secret buyer wheel they were giving them, and then at the meetings they would be like, Chris and Devin, they were just cold calling and prospecting, and they closed 20 million, right? And
Right.
like I'm sitting there thinking, damn, these guys are good, right? A
Right.
couple of years go by. I'm at Douglas Elliman. I talk to those guys, and they had left the company after a disagreement, and they're like, yeah, there was a secret buyer wheel. Like the
Told you
CEO was
it
feeding
told you the
us. The
truth.
CEO was feeding us his friends' leads directly, right?
Right.
To
Right.
keep the rest of the, shall I say, minions hopeful, right?
Right.
And they are the
Right.
Judas goat, because if I would have followed that formula of cold calling, you're just leading people into the slaughterhouse.
Right.
Now, is promising people a bunch of free stuff when these things sound good in theory, but in actuality they don't work? Is that someone being a Judas goat? That's up for every individual to decide, right? I
Yeah.
do believe that a lot of people with with an IQ above 10 have heard some of these ideas and go, well, how's that going to work?
Right.
Well, how's that going to work? Right? And they go, well, I'll tell you how it'll work. Well, tax the rich people. Okay. Statistically speaking, the top 1% of New York City already pays about half the tax. So
You
how
know
much
what?
more pressure can we put on those people
I
before
I
they
want to I
leave?
want to I want to I
Sure.
love that because I want to get into that part as far as
Yeah, sure.
um I'm baby stepping it before we get right there to the tax and the rich because I've had this conversation with a lot of people. Now, the 200 okay, I'll be honest with you. The craziest thing I heard amongst the campaign promises was the unit increase cuz in Jersey, I'm in Jersey. There's not much space to build, units in northern Jersey. 200,000 units is a lot. So, is there
Have
any
you ever seen, I guess my question should be, how many times have you seen Coming to America?
plenty of times?
Okay. When Arsenio Hall's character Semi is writing a letter to the king, right? And he's like, hey, things are going great in America. We just need 250, right? And the postal worker's like, only 250 grand? He's like, 500? She's like, why not make it a cool million, right? It doesn't matter, right? Like, it doesn't matter. And
Yeah,
that's the same thing with these guys and the things they promise. Like 200, he could have said 500,000. People be like, yeah, like nobody's going to
yeah.
question how it works.
So
I don't know where it's going to be
it's not
built.
even worth
Nobody
analyzing
knows.
it.
What'd you say?
I'm sorry, I was saying this, that it's not even worth analyzing this 200,000 units
Yeah, it's just
possible
it's
because
just
it's
like,
not.
hey, free stuff, vote for me, right? And I think we've seen it before. It
Yeah.
is at the end of the day, right? Politics is a popularity contest.
Well, we never. Here's the thing, though. In all fairness, I've never seen it like this, especially in New York. New York is whatever goes for New York goes for this country, right? New York is it.
I mean, you
So
could, yes,
I've
yes.
never seen. We're talking about free buses,
I mean,
a
are
city
we? Is
hall.
that possible? I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, he also said he wants to put all the homeless people in the subway station. It's just, there's already enough homeless people in the subway stations, right?
Yeah,
And I think, unfortunately, people it's about, I look at everything from I guess from a sales and a psychology perspective, right? And I think you get people excited, you play on their emotions,
yeah,
and then you sweep everything under the rug, right? You get people excited, you play on their emotions, and you sweep everything under the rug. Now, we're talking about a popularity contest here, right? Hot guys for this person and this and that, and it very much has become a popularity contest. Nobody
sure.
really cares about policy, what's effective, what's not, right? We think we've seen
Right.
them already destroy the housing market with the Rent Stabilization Act of 2019,
Hmm.
and then the Fair Act, right? But it is a popular, and one of my favorite fun facts, and I bring this up all the time, and people think that I'm on the spectrum. My wife thinks I'm on the spectrum. I probably am. Uh, but the reason that George W. Bush beat John Kerry in 2004 was because Bush just seemed like a regular guy you could have a beer with. That's all it came down to, right? And for the
Yeah.
people who are watching this who were young at the time, like we were in Iraq, there was all this stuff going on, right? And it
Yeah.
just came
Post
down to the
9/11.
fact that people just really couldn't connect with John Kerry, right?
Yeah.
Bush threw a fundraiser and it was like a barbecue, it was like a cookout. Kerry threw one and it was at a 5-star hotel, a white glove and champagne. And then he went to
Yeah.
Philadelphia, got a Philly cheesesteak with the camera in front of him. They said, "What kind of cheese you want?" He said, "Swiss." And that was it. He was cooked after that, right? Right? Like, pack him up, right? Like, that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Like
fact.
Swiss cheese, right? You see what I'm like, come on now, right?
Yeah.
So people are like, this guy, I don't relate to this guy. I'm going to take the other guy. Even though he got us in a war, I'm going
Right.
to take the
Right.
other
Right.
guy, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think I don't know. It's just a popularity contest. It's who's popular and does this guy have the gift of the gab? Sure. Does he come off as a used car salesman? To me, also yes. But I think
Yeah.
anyone who genuinely believes we got to have a bigger conversation just about the mental well-being of people nowadays because people genuinely believe that politicians care about them.
Well, you know what
I'm
it is.
sorry, man. I'm sorry.
I
Look,
think
like
it's because
whether when you go and look at the list of insider trading, okay, number one is Pelosi, but number two is Dan Crenshaw. It's a bipartisan issue. Why haven't they banned it?